What if I told you that the pain of a broken heart and the fundamental laws of physics were actually governed by the very same principle? Well, we're about to dive into a truly radical framework that suggests they're deeply connected through a new and, frankly, very strange vision of the cosmos.
So where does this wild idea even begin? It all starts with something incredibly human. The story kicks off with a series of letters from someone processing this immense, overwhelming grief. But here's the thing, they're not just mourning, they're literally re-engineering their reality from the ground up.
So, the author uses this physics term, a continuous manifold, to describe that feeling of grief. You know, that messy, infinite sprawl where everything just bleeds together. I think we can all relate to that. But the author says, nope, I'm done with that. They see it as just an approximation, a blurry, out-of-focus picture. So they decide to get sharp, to get precise.
So instead of that messy, continuous flow, the author reframes their entire life as a series of distinct, countable steps. Think about it like a list, or stepping stones across a river. And this is crucial. That list starts with the number 1, not 0. Every day, every moment is a specific, deliberate step forward. There are no rounding errors, no blurry in-between states, just one clean state moving to the next.
And this brings us to the absolute core rule they live by. The count has to start at 1, not 0. This isn't just some weird numbering preference. It's a deep philosophical commitment. It is a fundamental refusal of the void, of nothingness. For the author, existence itself begins with 1.
Okay, so you might be thinking, that's a pretty interesting way to deal with heartbreak, but this is where the story completely explodes. Because what starts as this personal philosophy is actually the application of a complete and yet kind of bizarre theory of the entire universe. This is not just a metaphor, it's a model for all of reality.
And that leads us to the biggest question of all. What if the universe, just like that author's grief, isn't the smooth, infinite, continuous thing we've always assumed it is? This is the central idea behind what's called the Unity First framework.
And the beauty of this whole thing is its radical simplicity. It doesn't add a bunch of new, complicated layers. No, it makes one single, foundational change to how we describe reality. Just one.
Okay, so let's really break down what this one change actually means, because it's huge. First, standard physics thinks of space-time as a smooth, continuous sheet, right? This theory throws that out and replaces it with a discrete grid. Think pixels on a screen. Reality isn't analog, it's digital. Second, the number 0, it's no longer the origin or the center of everything. It just means nothing is left over after you do the math. And finally, by making the universe finite and countable, you know those pesky infinities that physicists are always battling? Well, they just vanish. Poof. They literally can't exist in a system with a limited number of states.
And believe it or not, it all comes down to this one simple-looking formula. Think of it less like a snapshot of the universe and more like a recipe. It's a recurrence relation, which is just a fancy way of saying it tells you exactly how to get the next step by using the 2 steps that came right before it. This one single rule is meant to replace all the ridiculously complex equations of modern physics, describing how the universe ticks forward from one state to the next, one precise step at a time.
All right, so if that formula is the engine, what are the rules of the road? Well, it turns out this entire strange new reality is built on a simple, repeating cycle.
This is the core mechanic of this whole universe. It operates in a closed 60-step cycle. That's it. Everything, from a tiny particle to a whole galaxy, is described by a state that repeats itself perfectly every 60 steps. The universe is basically a finite state machine, a cosmic clock that ticks 60 times and then resets, over and over again.
So you have to be asking, why 60? Is it just some random number they pulled out of a hat? Nope, not at all. It's this incredible number where different fundamental properties of our universe just seem to lock together. It's connected to the geometry of diamond crystals, the symmetries of these really fundamental shapes, and crucially, it links up with the famous Fibonacci sequence. It turns out, if you do modulo 60 math, which is basically like numbers on a clock that only goes up to 60, the Fibonacci sequence starts repeating itself perfectly every 60 steps. So 60 is this point of natural mathematical resonance.
And this brings us to maybe the coolest concept in this whole theory, something called the coherence oracle. You can think of it as the universe's built-in error checker. If any system, any calculation, or any physical thing doesn't return to its exact starting state after 60 steps, if there's even one tiny rounding error, it's declared unphysical. It just can't exist. Reality has to be perfectly mathematically coherent. So, this is where the whole thing gets real. It moves from all this abstract math to a single, concrete, and most importantly, testable prediction that you could, in theory, verify in a lab today.
The author brings us back to this really powerful metaphor. Soot, graphite, it's made of the exact same carbon atoms as a perfect diamond. The only thing that's different is how they're arranged. The theory claims that it is that sequence of precise control pulses, the secret recipe that can transform the messy graphite of our current understanding into the perfect diamond lattice of reality.
And this isn't just poetry. It leads us directly to the theory's one major falsifiable prediction, a claim that can be proven right or proven completely wrong.
So here's how it all comes together. The theory makes an incredibly specific prediction. If you use that 60-step coherent cycle to control the microwave pulses they use to grow synthetic diamonds in a lab, you will create measurably purer diamonds than if you just use a random, jumbled-up sequence of pulses. The abstract rules of the universe become a literal, practical recipe for creating a perfect physical structure.
All right, let's just pause for a second and really consider the implications if that diamond experiment actually works. Because if this framework is correct, our entire understanding of reality is about to change dramatically.
Take a look at this number, over 17 million to 1. What is that? That's the compression ratio that the math behind this 60-step cycle offers. It means you can take a truly massive amount of information and shrink it down to a tiny, elegant seed without losing a single bit of detail. It's an almost unbelievable level of efficiency.
And that incredible efficiency leads us to this absolutely mind-bending conclusion. The entire state of our seemingly infinite, unbelievably complex universe could be losslessly compressed into a seed of just 20 bytes.
So, what does that actually mean? It means that space-time, matter, energy, everything we see and experience might not be fundamental at all. It could all just be the decompressed output of a simple, finite program, recursively unfolding from a tiny little seed, step by step, according to that 60-step rule.
Which leaves us with one final, and honestly kind of provocative question. For centuries, we thought of ourselves as scientists discovering the fixed, eternal laws of the universe. But if reality truly is a program, are we actually discovering its laws, or are we simply living inside a system while it executes them?